Hello there, good evening, and welcome back to the Football Tribe YouTube channel. My name is Robert K. Sarkos, and thank you for tuning into the channel. Thank you for watching this from wherever it is that you tune in from or listening in from. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Welcome back from that weekend that was filled with plenty of action from the Premier League. Perhaps as we speak, Spurs are leading Fulham by 2 goals to nil, and if the scoreline remains as is, that means Spurs will go back to the top of the Premier League summit with 23 points there, 2 points ahead of Manchester City and Arsenal, who are currently top of the table as we speak. But we won't dwell much on that, so let's look into the Premier League weekend as it was. The weekend opened up with Liverpool beating up against Everton by 2 goals to nil in that Merseyside derby. Mo Salah with a double strike there to win it for Liverpool, although the second goal didn't come until late on in added time that they managed to cement or seal that victory. Another big performance for Jurgen Klopp's side that continued to be impressive, and I think will go a long mile in terms of pushing Manchester City and Arsenal for that Premier League title, bar what Tottenham are doing at the moment. So, brilliant result there. And in the other game, Bournemouth were 2-1 losers against Wolverhampton Wanderers at the Vitality Stadium. Bournemouth did open the scoring through their striker Dominic Solanke, but that was cancelled by Matthias Cunha's equalizer, and then Sasa Kaladzic winning the game 2-1 for Gary O'Neill's side as he returned to the Vitality Stadium. Remember, Gary O'Neill at the tail end of last season guided Bournemouth to safety as he helped them stay in top of the Premier League and avoid relegation. So a brilliant result it was there for Gary O'Neill and his side. Then Brentford returned to winning ways with a 3-0 thumping of Burnley. Burnley just can't seem to find their footing in this league this season. Burnley, at the end of another defeat there, the one Visa Bran Mbuemo as well as Godoso were on target for Thomas Frank's side as they returned to winning ways. Brilliant result there. And then came Manchester City, who beat up against Brighton and Hove Albion by 2 goals to 1. It was a tale that saw Manchester City end the game down to 10 men after Manuel Akanji was shown the exit on a second booking. But before all that could happen, Julian Alvarez had opened the scoring for Pep Guardiola's side, and then minutes later brought Erling Haaland doubled that lead. In the second half, it was the substitute on loan star from Barcelona, that's Ansu Fati, that pulled one back for the visitors, but it turned out to be a mere consolation as Roberto De Zerbi's side lost by 2 goals to 1. Manchester City returning to winning ways and avoiding a third consecutive defeat in that fixture. Remember, they came into the game on the back of 2 consecutive losses against Wolverhampton Wanderers by 2 goals to 1 and by 1-0 against Arsenal. So they were quite eager to return to their winning ways. 3 points for Pep Guardiola ahead of his fixture in the UEFA Champions League. The other big result of the weekend saw Newcastle thrash Crystal Palace by 4 goals to 0. Now Newcastle are back to their best, their utmost form. They are winning game after game, and it is looking impressive for Ed Howe's side. It was Murphy, Anthony Gordon, Sean Longstaff, as well as Callum Wilson that were on target for the Magpies there as they won 4-0 against a Crystal Palace side that we know can be very good defensively. The result was not a surprise for me, but the scoreline was a bit of a surprise for me because we know Roy Hodgson can, field a compact team that doesn't often concede too many goals. If you remember, a couple of weeks back, they did beat Manchester United by 1 goal to 0 at Old Trafford, and they avoided conceding. Not to say that Manchester United is the best measure of attacking threat in the Premier League, but it also speaks to their impressive defensive work there. They also did limit Arsenal to a 1-0 victory earlier on at Selhurst Park. So their defensive duties are oftentimes impressive, but this weekend they were not to be as they lost by 4-0. Moving forward, Nottingham Forest did share the spoils with Luton Town in a 2-all draw. Nottingham Forest had the game in their grip there, leading by 2-0. Anthony Elanga providing both assists for a double by Chris Wood, but it was never meant to be, as Luton Town found their way back through Chiedozie Ogben and Elijah Adebayo there that scored the 2 goals to ensure that the two sides shared the spoils on Saturday. And then another draw proceeded after that, with Chelsea and Arsenal sharing the spoils in a 2-all draw. Now we'll be looking at that in a bit with more in depth in terms of how the whole game transpired. But shortly after that, Manchester United were 2-1 winners against Sheffield United. I must say, Manchester United were once again unconvincing in this victory. But all that matters at this point is that they took all 3 points, winning their second consecutive game. Remember, the game came on the back of their 2-1 win against Brentford. Before the international break, Scott McTominay scoring the brace in that one. He was once again on target against Sheffield, opened the scoring in that game. However, he turned from hero to villain when he conceded a penalty on the other side that saw Sheffield United level matters through Oli McBurn there, who converted from the spot kick. Yes, Andre Onana managed to dive to the right, side of that ball, but he was a little too shy, or fell too short in terms of saving that penalty. But anyway, all that was saved by a second half strike from Diego Dalot. Beautiful, beautiful strike. One of the best goals you will watch from the weekend. Perhaps some people may argue that Mikhail Modric's goal against Arsenal was better, but I do think Diego Dalot had quite a brilliant strike. Then on Sunday, we saw Aston Villa under the charges of Unai Emery beat up against West Ham by 4-1. It is one of those games that I thought that West Ham had the potential in them to at least pick a point, but they were just second best throughout the game. They were just second best. It was Aston Villa that opened the scoring through Douglas Luiz, and he did double matters through the spot kick there in the second half to make it 2-0, and then Gerard Bowen pulled one back for West Ham. Once again, Gerard Bowen being on the squad sheet on another match day. He's one of those that have had a brilliant season so far. Keeps on scoring and scoring. And then Oli Watkins stretched or restored that 2-goal cushion with a brilliant strike before Leon Bailey sealed it off to win it 4-1 for Unai Emery's side there to send them fifth on the table. Brilliant result for Aston Villa there, while West Ham will be desperate to pick themselves up for their midweek engagements on Thursday in the UEFA Europa League. Returning back to the key fixture of the weekend, that's the North London derby between Chelsea and Arsenal. Like I said, it ended 2-2. It was Cole Palmer from the spot kick who gave Chelsea the lead, while Mikhail Modric early into the second half there in the 48th minute did score to double that lead. I did think the first goal, that's the penalty, was a bit of a harsh decision on William Saliba, who was judged to have handled the ball in the area. Now, to the letter of the law, the officials were correct to award the penalty, but in the context of how it happened, I did think it was a bit harsh. And it is true that the pundits, I think Andres Townsend on the day there, did agree with me just as much as John Terry, who also seemed to voice his opinion that it was a harsh decision against William Saliba. because that ball was deflected into his direction and then landed on his hand. So, and then VAR reviewed the incident because the referee had not given it, reviewed the incident, and eventually a penalty was awarded. But I do think it was a bit harsh. Now, in the moments leading to the penalty, there seemed to be an argument between Raheem Sterling and Cole Palmer on who should take the spot kick. Eventually, after the intervention of Enzo Fernandez and certainly Carlo Modric, the ball was given to Cole Palmer, who made no mistake to convert from the spot kick there. Former Manchester City star boy there in the 15th minute, making it 1-0. So, Arsenal looked awful, but Chelsea were nothing but impressive. They were simply impressive. They denied Arsenal a sniff on that ball. They denied them to build a consistent play all throughout the first half. Arsenal did struggle, and they seemed to crumble or be shaken at every attempt of a Chelsea attack that came in their way. They seemed to be panicky in that area. Defensively, Ben White wasn't at his best. Zinchenko nowhere near his best. He seemed in certain moments almost lost in the game. The midfield wasn't clicking, and Chelsea were being compact in that midfield. They were denying Arsenal finding those spaces through which, to pass the ball and build some bit of momentum for themselves. Martin Odegaard struggled throughout the game. Gabriel Jesus didn't have much to offer, just as much as Bukayo Saka, not until in the second half. And same applied for Gabriel Martinelli. So, it's a game through which Arsenal did struggle throughout the entire first half to find traction. But in the second half, they did manage to find some bit of traction, although it was a little too late because it came after Chelsea had doubled the lead through Mikhailo Modric, former Shakhtar Donetsk left-footed winger there, for whose signature they did compete for with Arsenal back in January. So it was a beautiful game. He intended to cross that ball, but he caught David Raya totally off guard, and ended up in the back of the net. David Raya making a mess of himself there. But maybe, perhaps, he was certainly set, or his reputation was kind of salvaged by another audacious error on the other side through Robert Sanchez. Now, Roberto Sanchez played that blind pass in the 77th minute into Declan Rice, and he made no mistake from about 36 yards, and he just, curled that ball into the back of the net to make it 2-1. Now, just to paint for you a picture, that was Arsenal's first attempt on goal, as far as I remember. It didn't come until the 77th minute. Now, that tells you how impressive Chelsea had been until that moment. In fact, Chelsea gave Arsenal a point in this game because of their mistakes, just as much as Arsenal cost themselves with those simple errors on the other side. Minutes later, again, David Raya had another moment to salvage his reputation, or to try and salvage it, and he did play that long pass that eventually culminated into the equalizer, with Bukayo Saka providing the assist in the game. Leandro Trossard coming off the bench to net that equalizer. Brilliant stuff. Sent the other sides, all the stands where Arsenal fans were wild, but it was a terrible performance from Arsenal. Overall, the possession may have said 57-43, but they did look anywhere impressive. And like Declan Rice said in his post-match interview, he did say that is the worst they have played game this season. Totally horrible. Now, back to David Raya. Now, David Raya comes into number 1 spot ahead of Aaron Ramsdale ever since that October, international break. But to be honest with you, I have not seen enough of David Raya to say that he is miles better than Aaron Ramsdale, or even better, to say the least. For me, it's a 50-50. Perhaps a few identities in terms of how they apply themselves, especially with the ball at their feet, is what sort of makes a bit of a difference for Mikel Arteta to make his judgment, but I have not seen enough of David Raya to make a judgment that he is a much better goalkeeper than Aaron Ramsdale. Remember, he's playing now for a big team. He has to remember that Arsenal are bigger than Brentford, are bigger than Blackburn, where he's played before, as in the Champions League. And I do get the sense that Aaron Ramsdale was starting to understand that little by little as he continued to impose himself in that number one role. Yes, he did have some a bit of sloppy moments here and there at the tail end of last season, but I do think he is a good goalkeeper. But anyway, that was the action from Stamford Bridge. Like I said, overall, all Arsenal players were average, apart from maybe just in a bit Declan Rice. But I did think Kai Havertz and Takahiro Tomiyasu, as well as Leandro Trossard, when they were brought on, they did seem much better players. They seemed to lift the spirits of the team as the game wore on. So brilliant stuff there. Moving on from away from all the action of the Premier League this week in the midweek, the UEFA Champions League returns on a Tuesday night and on Wednesday night. So here are the fixtures that will be coming your way. In Group A, we'll have Galatasaray host Bayern Munich, while Manchester United will be at home against Copenhagen. Now remember, Manchester United are winless in the UEFA Champions League. They have lost their opening two fixtures, that is by 3-2 against Galatasaray, as well as 4-3 against Bayern Munich in the opening fixture there for Group A. In Group B, Lens of France do host PSV Eindhoven, while Sevilla will be at home against Arsenal. Arsenal did lose their last game in the UEFA Champions League, losing 2-1 against Lens in France, while PSV and Sevilla did settle for a draw in their fixture. So Arsenal will be looking forward, or will be desperate to return to winning ways if they do want to go ahead and win this group and finish above everybody else. So they will be desperate to pick all 3 points on their visit in Spain. But the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan is not an easy place to go, especially when you are on European nights. So we'll wait to see how Mikel Arteta can sort of redeem or inspire his team to return to winning ways. So that is the action in Group B. In Group C, we'll have Braga or SC Braga host Real Madrid, while Union Berlin will be at home against Napoli there. Still on Tuesday, in Group D, Inter Milan will host Red Bull Salzburg, while Benfica will host Real Sociedad there to complete the fixtures of a Tuesday in Group D. And then on Wednesday, we'll have Feyenoord host Lazio, while Celtic will also be at home against Atletico Madrid. Newcastle host Borussia Dortmund. So Newcastle come into this game in very high spirits and on a winning streak. Remember, they did beat Paris Saint-Germain in their last Champions League game by 4-1 before beating Burnley by 2-0 in the subsequent weekend before the international break. They did return from the international break with a 4-0 victory against Crystal Palace. So if anything, Eddie Howe is showing us that he has the potential to assemble a side that can beat up against the big boys in the UEFA Champions League. And then on the same day, in the group of death, that is Wednesday, Paris Saint-Germain will host AC Milan, while RB Leipzig will host a Red Star Belgrade in Group G. Young Boys will be at home against Manchester City, while in Group H, Barcelona will be at home against Shakhtar Donetsk. Royal Antwerp will host AFC Porto to complete the Wednesday fixtures of the UEFA Champions League. So that's the action that will be coming on your table as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned this week. So keep it up on the channel as we'll be discussing some of that action from the Champions League and anything else that may catch our attention from the world of football. Thank you for tuning into the channel. Remember Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and also turn on your notifications. And I will see you next time. Stay blessed and have a wonderful week. Thank you.